Express yourself. You don't never with nobody else. All you got to do now. Oh, snap now. Whatever you do, do it good. Whatever you do, Lord. Do it good. Oh, here we go. It's not what you look like when you're doing what you're doing. It's what you're doing. What's up, people? I'm ready, people. I'm ready. Let's do it on the moon, y'all. In the jungle, too. What's up, Brandy Gwen? How's Mary doing? So let the horns do the thing they do, y'all. Spaghetti, get pippa, I keep saying that I'm gonna design my own music. At some point, I'm gonna have to sever ties with Mr. Chucky Chuck, old Charles. But everything don't mean a thing if it ain't the thing you want. Oh, snap, people. This is my favorite part. No, do it. Do it to him. Come on and do it. Y'all do it. Let's do it. It's Commodore. Some. What's happening? Skagoo-doo-da. Do it, Lord. A-E-I-O-U. A-E-I-O-U. Sometimes Y two. Folks, I took a sign language class when I was a Boy Scout. At least I got the merit badge. Let's say that. Do it. Woo, Lord. I gotta cut it, folks. What's happening, people? How y'all doing? That's good to hear. Folks, it's Thursday night, so I got something to say. You know it's true. I want to say good evening and welcome you guys to the show. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Those that are here, let's go ahead and do what we do. And I know some people are gonna be coming in, trickling in, and it's just how we do. Some people are just like black folks in church. They're walking in church with their finger up all late and everything. Got that look. Shout out to the old churches, man. I don't even know if people still do that nowadays. I guess with all the mega churches, you get a seat, or it's like being at a concert. You SOL, huh? Whatever. Want to say good evening and welcome you guys to the show. It's Thursday night. I appreciate you guys sharing your Thursday nights with me. We're going to talk about a few things tonight. A couple, 2, 3, something like that. First and most obvious has to be this damn debate. Whatever they call it. It's like watching a train wreck. On one hand, you want to stop watching. On the other hand, you just want to see how far it goes and how many casualties there are. For the last few days, I've been reading other people's pages and I've been gauging, feelings. I've been interacting with people from different walks of life here locally and on the phone and via texting, what have you, Facebook, and just kind of see how people felt about it. How many people actually could sit through delusional Donnie with his usual bad behavior. Other folks, I guess I wanted to say this, honestly, it was hard for me to watch as well. I felt more of an obligation to watch simply because I have to be able to give an analysis, and to do that, I have to watch it as hard as some of it was. And 5 minutes into it, I understood what the strategy was. So it was a little bit easier to watch, but it was just we had a teacher in middle school, Miss Garibaldi. I don't know if she's still alive, but she used to use two words. She used to say your behavior is deplorable, and her favorite word was filibuster. I was probably 12 years old when I found out what filibuster meant. But when we would misbehave in class, she talked about our behavior being deplorable. And she referred to the young men as Master Batiste, and so forth and so on. And I just felt like Ms. Garibaldi needed to be there as a commentator because Chris Wallace just wasn't getting it done. Um, Ms. Garibaldi used to make us memorize a poem on Monday and recite it on Friday. So it just sent me back to because the behavior that Trump displayed was so childish. It was so childish. I'm like, how could people even follow him? Let me not go off on a tangent. Last week, um, we talked about a few things. We talked a little bit about the Supreme Court giving honor to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And we talked about them rushing to fill that seat. And I gave you some of the reasons why, and some things are left out purposely because I wanted to see how it applied to the person that they actually nominated. And after they did that, it just came true. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about the road to what I call a Supreme Court and federal judgeships. And lastly, I think we're going to talk a little bit about voting because that's the most important thing, and that's why we're all watching this ongoing train wreck. And it's like one car after another, after another, after another. And just when you think the wreck is over, there's a truck that comes and hit the train, and then there's a boys that hit the bridge that the train is sitting on. So it's like being with this little kid song. There's a hole in the ground, there's a tree in a hole in the ground, and the grass grows green all around, all around. It's just ongoing, it's perpetual. We've got about 32 days left. 32 days in a wake up. Given the behavior of Trump and Moscow Mitch, given the fact that Trump refused to denounce white supremacists and other Republicans are now publicly speaking out, there may be a glimmer of hope. And I said that slowly, simply because when it comes down to taking the vote, are they going to feel more fear of letting down their constituents who are appalled by the behavior, or are they going to fear Trump and Mitch most and go along with the party? So that remains to be seen. Maybe, just maybe, Romney and some of the people that were sitting or straddling the fence will have a change of heart and no longer capitulate or bow down to Moscow Mitch arm bending and whatever he does to get them in line. All we need is a couple of votes to derail this thing. And things are happening, as my mom would say, but by God, mysterious ways. So folks, keep a cool upper lip. All is not lost, not yet. We have to keep pressure on these idiots to let them know that there is consequences. There are consequences. I guess I can't conjugate verbs tonight. Is, are. There are consequences to filling a seat and not giving us, the public, a chance to talk about um, who should be able to fill that seat according to who's nominated on November 3rd. So let's keep a stiff upper lip. Let's keep our heads up and let's stay kind of optimistic about that. But let's not let up on them. We also have to let them know that this is not Nazi Germany in 1939-40. And we're not going to stand for some of the things that Trump is doing with the stormtroopers. I think this was necessary. As crazy as it was, everything happens for a reason. One of my favorite saying when I talk to kids, especially young adults, I say there's no such thing as a coincidence. It takes a set of circumstances to create a situation that ultimately results in what we might call destiny or a faith. You understand? So it took these things to happen to re-energize some of the things with Black Lives Matter. The other thing is it reminded some of the other quote unquote protected groups that every bit of legislation that has passed for women, for Jews, for LGBTQ and other protected groups has done so on the heels of some type of legislation for Blacks, even going back to slavery itself. So, in Reconstruction. So, from here on out, we're gonna be like some Marines. I'm gonna bring all you guys into my Marine Corps boot camp. If we were in boot camp, we would be counting this down. And I guess in boot camp, the song goes X amount of days and I'll be home. And back in the day, they said something crazy and getting stoned. And I won't say what they said because brothers always would react back then. I'm not going to talk to a Marine and you'll find out exactly what they said. I won't say it here on air. But the focus was getting home and boot camp being over, being done with boot camp so you could be able to wear that chevron and that eagle globe and anchor on your collar. Going from being lower than whale shit that floats on the ocean floor is how they refer to us recruits. And, to being called Marine. The first time you put that uniform on and you're walking through the airport in San Diego, people are looking at you and they know because the airport is here and Marine Corps recruit depot is right next door. They got some Navy guys over there, but we're not talking about them. So as soon as you drive basically around the corner to the airport, they know that here's another class of young Marines just graduated. But we would be running PT and we would be singing this song. So I'm gonna give you guys this song to say. But here's if I was your DI, I would be saying something like 32 days and we'll be home. Now home is having that idiot out of our White House. So 32 days and I will be home free of Trump and getting stoned. Hey, roll. So, folks, without any further ado, let's get into this. This first thing I'm going to talk about is the debate or whatever that was, okay? This debate was a combination of a planned strategy to frazzle Joe and delusional Donnie being his narcissistic, arrogant, delusional self. I believe the strategy was designed, and he was really prepped good at doing this. Every time Jill started or the mediator started to talk, Delusional Donnie would interrupt, and it's easy for him to be arrogant and sarcastic. So, he's this bad kid sitting in the back of the class that just won't shut the hell up. And at one point, Joe told him, "Man, would you just shut up?" And I was like, "Ugh, couldn't be me. I'd have lost it. I'd have lost it." But the strategy was to bait Joe into a free for all, a mudslinging, what I call pissing contest. And this is the thing that Trump does best. You understand? Repeating the lies that he says in sound bites that he has in that Trump has in his campaign commercials was fruitless because it made sense that Joe was ready for that. He had a plan of attack for that. He was prepped and he was ready. So that strategy was to try and get Joe angry the way that Kamala and some of the Dems did in the primary. The problem with this strategy was simple, but the reason it didn't work during the primaries, Joe was playing catch up. Going into Iowa, Joe was so far behind, he was one of the last to the table and he was fighting, even though he was the front runner, he was fighting to get in. And all of those other guys was doing what Trump was doing. When he would try to talk, they kind of ganged up on him until he was no longer the man to beat. Then whoever the person was to beat, that's who they kind of ganged up on. So now that Joe is the Democratic nominee, he has the confidence knowing that the Democrats in a huge cross section of America is supporting him. A huge portion of America, and just getting out and talking to people, even the people who they're finding it harder and harder and harder to stand with Trump and support and defend his idiotic, childish, narcissistic, delusional behavior. Um, but I guess watching the whole thing, it all came to a crescendo or a head when Trump refused to denounce hate groups and gave his infamous shout out that the Dems, when he gave the shout out, let me just kind of, when he gave the shout out, the Dems wind up having their best night ever. And this, I didn't plan on saying, but I watched CNN, I watched MSNBC, and I watched a couple other stations. I even watched Fox, but of course they wouldn't talk about it. But all of the other stations kept talking about how the Dems had had their best night of fundraising since Joe and named Kamala and so forth and so on. So it had a negative effect. The other thing it did is it put those other people on the defensive, those other Republicans on the defensive. So let's talk a little bit about the Supreme Court of the United States. All along, I've been saying that Trump is not smart enough. He doesn't know enough about government. I know he didn't pass high school civics, so we're not even talking about public policy, anything like that. And he doesn't know enough about government and how it works to orchestrate the political maneuvers we saw in the last 4 years. For the past 3 years leading up to the impeachment, I wish somebody would pinch me and I found out that this was all a bad dream. But for the last 3 years leading up to the impeachment, we saw Donnie and Moscow Mish become bosom buddies. It was Mish's brainstorm to stack the federal court with so-called conservative judges who will do the Republicans' bidding. 1 week ago, my suspicions were confirmed when Donnie, in an interview, said early in his, shortly after the election, he went to Mitch and he was talking to him about appointing ambassadors. And Mitch said, forget the ambassadors. Mitch urged him to nominate Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. And then he quietly told him that the Dems had left all of these federal judgeship seats open. I think he said 160, 170 judgeship seats that were open had not been filled since before Obama left office. Mish has been trying to do this since he first arrived on Capitol Hill in 1984. He had this vision of making America partial, not just white, but partial for those people that are rich and well-to-do. He's learned in the state of Kentucky that they don't have a problem with him being the richest senator and they being the poorest state. So he felt if he could get other Republicans into this way of thinking, see them as the aristocrats and accept them making more and more money, taking tax breaks, and accepting less and less, that they would be successful. And the best way to get this done was making sure that they appointed judges that would go along with their vision, or Mitch's vision. Meanwhile, while all this was going on, the Dems will focus on Hillary in the 2016 and how she lost the election. And they slept. Then Mish and Don focus on seating federal judges in key blue and battleground states. The Democrats slept. Finally, Mish started grooming his own young proteges for circuit court and appeals court in positions in DC. Let me say that one more time, because it's all going to make sense in a minute. Mish started grooming people, has been grooming people, just like this Danny Knucklehead who's playing AG in Kentucky. He had been grooming folks all along. All of these people that had been clerking for him, he was grooming them to become appeals court judges and circuit court judges in DC. It's going to make sense. Meanwhile, and I hate to be so hard on her, but you gonna understand, inept Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer stood by and watched it happen. They slept. Then, in 2018, the new progressives arrived on the Hill. There started some infighting within the Democratic Party. And while they were fighting amongst themselves, Mish and Donnie appointed nearly 300 judges. Remember, a judge has unlimited power in his or her court. Rarely is a judge's ruling overturned without an act of God. Then the Republicans passed tax breaks for the wealthiest 1% to 3%. And I keep talking about that because I'm trying to drum it into your consciousness. This is how they did it. In the midst of the pandemic, they were working on more tax breaks. So they passed a tax break in 2017 and 2018, 2 years back to back. I get angry because while all this is going on, while Nancy was fighting to become Speaker of the House, they slept. There was a lack of leadership. There was a lag in leadership action and a lack in leadership to do anything, to stop this onslaught. And most of the stuff that they were doing was so crazy. They were being distracted by who's getting fired and who's leaving the White House this week. Meanwhile, if I'm paying attention, I know they know. So on top of all of that, they allowed it to happen. They slept. Then we come into 2018 going into 19. We've got all of this infighting from the progressives and the Democrats. Now several Dems are pulling away from Capitol Hill because they want to be president of the United States. So they like little kids. They're fighting amongst themselves while a unified Republican Party, mainly Mission Don, is making moves and maneuvering. They're like little kids. Pick me, pick me, pick me, pick me. I'm better than him. I've got a husband. I'm a woman. I'm an immigrant. I'm this, I'm that. I'm better than. So we saw the same thing, this division, this divide and conquer. We didn't have to worry about the Republicans. They were doing it. Now, some would say that's part of the democratic process. I say it's the most civilized part of the democratic process, simply because when there's an incumbent, the other party is at a disadvantage. Unfortunately, when that other party is the Republicans, they have been planning since day one. I posted something on my page. It was this, I call it admission of obstruction. Harry Reid, once he was no longer a member of Congress, he gave this admission of obstruction. He talked about on the day that Obama was elected, Republicans came to DC and they devised a plan to do two things. To see that he didn't get a second term, they failed miserably at that. And they wanted to make sure that whatever agenda Obama presented, they would obstruct. They would throw up some type of obstruction. And unfortunately, unlike the Republicans, there were some Democrats that went along with it. So after Harry Reid gave this admission of obstruction, it just illustrated to us the difference in the two parties. At the last minute, everybody and their mom, we had at one point close to 50 people vying for attention enough to become president. Meanwhile, the Republican Party was solidified around Donald Trump. Let me get away from that.